In the fabled land of Northern California, nestled in the Valley of Sacramento, two friends begin a journey to enlighten the world about their experience living life as a Xennial. But what is a Xennial, you may ask? If you wish to know, then follow them on their adventures.
Welcome to the Xennial Chronicles. This is James.
This is Mike.
And, we've kind of been having, it seems like, a theme recently.
Right.
And this theme that seems to be happening recently is talking about how pop culture things are being put under a different type of scrutiny, maybe than they were before. But that's one way to put it. Best way to put it is there are pop culture things that have been lasting things that are part of the identity of pop culture, part of our identity as a generation for some of these things that are and have been over the last so many years, maybe decade or so, maybe even longer. They have been slowly changing and morphing. Now, there are those that understand that the changes and morphs that have happened with these things are as a result of the change in society and our societal views. One example I can bring up real quick is the Christmas song, "The Baby It's Cold Outside."
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that is now considered a song that's got and I think I mean, if you really pay attention to the lyrics, it has that vibe of a rapey kind of song.
Oh, for sure.
Rapey kind of song.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a younger generation, a newer generation that feels that. There's the older generations, though, that wants to hold on to and cling to these things of, no, it's not that. It's just an innocent enough song, even though in the song, the female part does say no at one point, specifically says no, the word no.
The line itself is the answer is no. I've heard it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
there's other shit like what's in this drink and all this kind of stuff that tends to allude to something not okay.
I will admit the last I heard that song just recently. So it's kind of in my mind for this. It was actually this last week I heard it. And I started like devilishly giggling as I heard the what's in this drink line.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I will admit this is a terrible thought. And I this is the terrible human being part of me, because everybody has at least a little bit of terrible human being in them. It's how much you can control that terrible human being.
Right.
And at least I'm talking about this in just a what if scenario, not as I'm doing this and I think it's going to be I'm proud of doing this. I would not necessarily be proud of orchestrating this to happen. And yet at the same time, it follows my twisted sense of humor.
Okay.
I thought if somebody was to do a cover version of this song and female voice can just be whatever, that's fine. But with that line, if they did the male voice as Bill Cosby.
Okay. My God.
And
Saturday Night Live. Yes.
Did they do it?
They did it. They did it right when the allegations came out. Oh my God. It was a Christmas episode they did it. I've seen this. And I died laughing because he was played by Kenan Thompson.
Well, of course, Kenan always does it.
And it's I really can't stay, and him, but baby is cold outside. Like it was so bad. And it was
first I'm gonna have to find this. And I'm thinking now is you saying that. The reason the thought probably popped in my head is because I probably have seen this, because I make sure to go back and watch Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
I don't watch it on Saturday nights. I watch it later. I probably had seen it, and the thought had already stuck in my head from that. So we'll give Saturday Night Live credit for it, because it probably would subconsciously stick it in my head from that. And so I don't feel as awful as I did when it
somebody else came up with a terrible idea. I'm fine.
Yes, and it was already in my brain.
Oh no, it was right when it was hot, like 2013, 2012.
Okay,
back when it would start to get the actual allegations. Way after Hannibal Buress called him out. Yeah,
that makes makes sense. It would be in my brain, and good, somebody did it, because that was where my brain was like, that would be so funny. It would be so wrong.
I remember that sketch was full of a bunch of really risky jokes. But it was back when Saturday Night Live with the more recent cast, and they've been pretty good for the last few years, I would say. But there was this span of about 5 years where some of the cast has changed over. Like Taron Killam's not there anymore. A lot of the other writers, they're no longer there. But holy shit, some of the stuff they did was just gold because it was so risky.
The stuff that they're doing right now, I don't know if you've watched any of the recent stuff.
Not
since they've come back.
It's been a couple of episodes.
Yeah, since they've come back from the at-home hiatus stuff, and they've actually started doing the shows again.
Yeah,
they've gone a bit risky on a few of the things.
Oh yes,
it's typically the pre-recorded stuff, but they've gone a bit. There's been a few times where I've been like, "Whoa, okay, all right," and I'm all for going a little risky with humor. But they've gotten to a couple points where I'm like, ooh, that's almost towing the line right there.
I stick around for the weekend updates at least. Like I see two things mainly. It's the opening and the weekend update are like the two sketches I'm there for. And if the opening is so-so, then I'll watch the weekend update, but I won't watch the rest of it.
It depends on the host. Some people I just don't want to see attempt to act and fail miserably at it.
That I understand.
Annoying.
Yeah.
But anyway, the other thing being, of course, with this song, this "Baby It's Cold Outside" song, is again the fact that there is that line. The answer is no. I'm sorry. What was it? About 10 years ago, 12 years ago, maybe, Queen Latifah taught me in a movie as she's hanging some kid out a window, telling this kid that no means no, so that he understands that no means no. Was a movie she did with Steve Martin.
Bring Down the House?
Yes. That kind of stuck with me. If Queen Latifah tells me that no means no, I'm going to listen to Queen Latifah.
Queen Latifah will kick your fucking ass, dude.
It's not so much that. That's a woman with authority that I respect.
Yes, absolutely. And then not just for the sake of, like, just to clarify, it's not for the sake of that. I just know that Queen Latifah will kick your fucking ass.
There's that too.
Just in general,
there's that too. But you know.
But yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
She's an actress that I really like as an actress. I'm not as big a fan of her music.
Yeah.
But even though she's a wonderful singer, I just don't like her specific music. But
I do. I can get behind it. I like what she does. I like what she's done for a while. Yeah. I get it though.
But I love her as an actress. One of my favorite romantic comedies. Yeah. And yes, people, I am a huge fan of romantic comedies because I'm a little softy. I like them. They are enjoyable to me. So if I, for instance, say that a romantic comedy is crap, it's not because I'm playing the misogynistic masculine card. Oh, romantic comedies are stupid. I love them. I think they're great movies when they're done right.
I like how you have to clarify it that way as well.
You do have to clarify it that way because the immediate assumption can be, oh, you're just a guy. You don't understand romantic comedies. I do. I understand them. I love them. I cry while watching them. They make me feel better about my day. If I'm having a crap day, I will watch a romantic comedy on purpose just to make my day better. And her version of the movie Last Holiday, because it is a remake on, interestingly enough, an Alec Guinness film, which I think was a remake of another film. Her movie Last Holiday is one of my favorite movies to watch.
I've never seen it.
It's predictable. It's formulaic. It's got its cheesy moments that don't seem, in any way realistic, but it's a romantic comedy, so it's not supposed to be realistic. Amazing role by her. Amazing role by just about everybody in the cast. Gerard Depardieu is in the movie. I can't think of the actor that plays Mr. Cragen, the business owner that she kind of grapples with. Giancarlo Esposito is in it. Interestingly enough, LL Cool J is in it.
Oh, cool!
And he plays a super understated role. He's just some normal dude. Nothing really flashy about anything that he's doing. And just the kind of simplicity of the person that he is, he plays just a normal guy. And he's believable as just some normal guy that works at a department store. And I often find that actors have a hard time, big Hollywood actors have a hard time playing normal people. Because in most time when you're watching movies, you're not watching movies about the lives of normal people. You're watching movies about the lives of somebody that's strange or different or special or whatever in some way, shape, or form. When you're watching a cop TV show or a cop movie, they're not just your average cop that's just, sitting in their cruiser all the time, giving out speeding tickets and whatnot. These guys are like super cops. They're involved in all these crimes, shootouts, all these things that some cops go their entire career without ever having. You know what I mean? It's an elevated level. So for actors to come down and play just a normal, average, everyday person, it's sometimes difficult to believe that, like, no, that guy's not a normal person. There's no way. I don't believe that at all. And yet in this role, he's just a normal guy. And you can believe he's just a normal guy. And that's kind of it's kind of like, okay, it shows some range and acting depth for him, which I don't think he's gotten a lot of opportunity with a lot of his roles. And I mean, again, I mentioned him already, but Gerard Depardieu is one of my favorite actors because he's just crazy. Every moment that he's on screen, he does crazy stuff, and yet still grounds it with some real world believability. The French accent, he can do whatever he wants to. You know what I mean? And you still think, yeah, it's a Frenchman. They're crazy, and I totally believe it. But great movie, one of my favorite movies to watch. It's sappy, it's silly, but it puts me in a good mood. So that movie just by itself makes me forgive her for movies like Taxi and whatnot, which was just an awful film. But anyway, no means no. This is what Queen Latifah has taught me.
Yes.
This is the message we should get from that song, Baby, It's Cold Outside. And this is the thing. Society has changed to this idea of no means no. When a woman tells you no, when a man tells you no, when anybody tells you no, no means no. No shouldn't mean, okay, it might be a maybe if you pressure me more and push me more and force me more, right?
Right.
No means no.
Right.
Which leads us to one of the more current things that is happening as part of it's supposed to be part of the cancel culture movement that is being talked about. Like we discussed last week. It was last week we discussed Dr. Seuss, right? We discussed last week.
We did. It's like we're just on this ride for a few episodes, man.
Well, the thing is, the news media is on this ride for a few episodes. I think I have some speculation as to why the news is following these things right now, and that's because that's the only real. I mean, we all know what's going on with COVID, so there's not a whole lot of news going on. It's
kind of established information, and
there's no other singular individual that's calling a crap ton of attention to themselves. I
have no idea what you mean. It's not like we've been dealing with that for the last 5 years or anything.
That's, constantly blowing up social media sites with all kinds of weird crap being said that we have to regularly check and go, what the hell is happening now? We don't have that happening from that, one central type figure demanding all this attention. So I think that this is what has to be filled into the kind of the airwaves right now is these discussions about this supposed cancel culture movement. And it's a funny thing because, again, we discussed it last week that this is this is the same group that's calling this cancel culture that previously tried to cancel things back in a different era. It's also a thing that replicates throughout history. As you see the society change, you have a group of specifically, typically the older generational groups, and then even some of the younger generational groups that follow the older generational group ideology, mentality, worldview, that decry whatever new changes have happened in society, whatever direction it's moving to, and call it a destruction of the society, when in fact it's not. It's the society moving forward. I mean, there are reports back from when newspapers became circulated, right? There were newspapers being readily available because that's how everybody got their news. That's how everybody kind of connected to things, and books were available. And for people to be able to access easily, buy, carry with them. And there were news stories done about how the older generations were angry with the younger generations riding in buses and subways and stuff. So this is the 1900s. This is in our roughly modern era, but not entirely modern era.
Mm-hmm.
And they never interact with each other because they got their nose in the newspapers and in the books all the time, and they're with them reading books all the time. They're never going to have proper friends, proper connection to society. This gives them the ability to just zone out and not talk to people.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, and now we're saying the phone's the issue and kids should be reading books. I mean, this is the change that every older generation is going to have complaints about, the changes that happen as the newer generations change and shape and mold society. Well, it becomes, I think, even harder when you take things that are beloved by the older generations and change those things. Dr. Seuss would be a classic example. The song would be a classic example.
Mm-hmm.
This next thing will be a classic example because as Hollywood is wont to do, they are remaking, sequeling. It's more of a sequel.
Yeah, it is a sequel. It is a sequel. The first one is
they are sequeling. They are sequeling a movie that was from one generation's childhood.
Mm-hmm.
With the idea now that, and it's a smart business idea. Believe me, it's a very smart business idea. It's what Star Wars did.
Yeah.
When they made the newer Star Wars movies, what they do is they take this crowd that is this generation that is now grown up. They go back and find something from that generation's childhood. And Star Wars did this. Transformers did this. The G.I. Joe movies attempted to do this and failed miraculously.
Mm-hmm.
They take something that was beloved in the childhood of this generation, and they remake a new version of it when this generation has become adults, and more importantly, have the money to be able to spend because they're the adults now. They don't have to ask their parents for the money. And Hollywood tries to cash in on the nostalgia idea of the stuff. And this is something that has happened, I would say, probably 30, 40 years after Hollywood was established, because they started, rotating through this nostalgia. Even think back to innocuous things that you wouldn't really register in that way. When did the Flintstones movie come out? The live action one with John Goodman.
Oh my goodness. That was in the 90s, wasn't it? It was in the early mid 90s.
During the time when the kids that watched Flintstones growing up were adults.
Not just adults, they had been adults. They were in like their 40s. Weren't they?
And they had kids, and they could bring their kids to go and see the movies with them, and they would spend the money for it. How about the Jetsons? When they did the Jetsons animated movie where Tiffany did the voice of Judy Jetson.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was in the late 80s.
Oh, that was the one with Tiffany? I have actually a really strange little tip I didn't realize about this for years. I think I might have told you about this. So that movie with Tiffany as the voice of Judy Jetson, she sings a couple of songs on that. A couple of other songs are sung by my uncle. My uncle was a child. His name's Shane Sutton. He actually had a brief career in country music, but before that, he was just a kid. A kid. Kid sounds like Michael Jackson at the time. Just has that same register, and they put him on top of pop music they shopped that quite a bit, but he sang a couple of songs on that, and I've heard him recently. I didn't even know that he was on that.
Which, by the way, that was the reason. One of the reasons I brought it up.
Oh, really?
Personal connection to it.
Yeah,
but it fits the scenario in that these remakes, sequels, redone versions of these things come out at a time when they can cash in the most on the nostalgia. Recently there was the TV show, there was the Netflix show Stranger Things that totally cashed in on the phenomenon of
full
80s
bore,
horror movies.
Dude.
And that's we're seeing we see all this happen. Look at even the Toy Story movie, right? The original first Toy Story movie. Yes, there were modern toys in that, at least for the time period it was made. But the main protagonist toys, one of them was a modern toy in the Buzz Lightyear toy. That was a modern space toy. The cowboy toy, that harkened back to the parents, grandparents, depending on the ages, back to the stuff that they watched on TV. And so when they're watching this with their kid, they can see themselves having handed down Woody to their kid, and their kid getting the new Buzz Lightyear toy. That was the entire point of it.
Yep.
That's how it ended up working and appealing as big as it did for them to make 4 freaking movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't seen the fourth one yet, but that's because the third one made me cry too damn much. I refuse to watch the fourth one now.
I have not seen. I have a confession to make. I have not seen the first one. The third one. I have not seen the third one. I have seen the first one, the second one, but I hear the third one was supposed to be made for like video, and it was just so well written and well done. They're like, no, we're theatrically releasing this. There's no way we're going to skip on it.
The third one is amazing, but just like bring an entire box of tissues.
Oh man,
because like if you don't cry for the last 30 minutes of that movie, then I'm right, and your red hair has prevented you from having a soul.
Okay. The ultimate test of a soul.
Seriously.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. The ultimate test of a soul is whether or not you cry during Toy Story 3.
If you think that somebody in your family has been possessed by a demon or their soul has been removed, they've sold it to Satan for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
You sit them down in front of Toy Story 3. If they do not cry in the last half hour of Toy Story 3, you need to get some salt, get some wrought iron, and take care of business. I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to give too many instructions and then get blamed for it later. Anyway, point being, this nostalgia factor is used as a selling point. And right now we have something that's coming out with nostalgia factor. We have a few things, actually. I mean, there's the new Top Gun movie that's coming out. I only mentioned that because I was fiddling around on my bass guitar today. I figured out the main theme for Top Gun on my bass as I was just messing around. I was hitting a couple notes. I'm like, that sounds familiar. And I start picking out, instead of just randomly playing stuff, I start actually trying to figure it out. I'm like, holy crap, that sounds like the theme from Top Gun.
That's awesome.
That's pretty simple. But anyway, it was a fun little thing. But that movie's coming out to play on the nostalgia. But the big one, the one that probably means something for our generation the most right now, although Top Gun does, the big one is, of course, they've made a new Space Jam movie.
Yes, they have.
And first of all, I will say that when I heard there was being done a new Space Jam, my first thought was, how do you do Space Jam without including Michael Jordan? Because Michael Jordan was a transcendent player at the time. There were other great players, but nobody really measured up to Michael Jordan. I heard who they were going to get to play the basketball player, and I'm like, but in this era, does he really stand head and shoulders above everybody else like Michael Jordan did at the time? And I can say this is where I had to stop myself and say, is this a generational issue with me? Because maybe I don't understand that LeBron James does stand that much ahead of all the other players. And, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. He's one of the few basketball players I do know by name. At least modern basketball players I know by name. I know LeBron James. We had the discussion a year ago, I think, about Kobe Bryant when he passed. I knew Kobe Bryant. Obviously, he played during the time that I paid attention to basketball, and so it overlapped a little bit with Kobe Bryant. But of course, I know Shaquille O'Neal because I think everybody knows Shaquille O'Neal.
Right.
I know him more from his general commercials now than I know him from anything else. And the movies he does with Adam Sandler now. But
I missed that.
Other than he's in Grown Ups 2. He has that kind of really funny part in Grown Ups.
Shaq is in Grown Ups 2?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta see that.
Yeah, he plays a cop, and I
already like it.
There's a few interesting scenes. I think the best of them is Adam Sandler's friend Peter Dante, who you would know him.
Yeah, who does he play?
Little Nicky. He's the guy that Nicky's brother makes go to sleep while Nicky is possessing the other one.
Oh, that guy. Okay.
Yes, that guy. That's why I said you would know him.
Okay, that's Peter Dante.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so he was.
Yes.
Yeah, he's him. He plays the athlete. Keeps making fun of Bobby and Waterboy. That guy.
Yes, he's the quarterback.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I know you're talking about.
He's
Dude, where did I get a monkey? Yeah. Oh my God, he's been everywhere. Oh, yes, I love him. I love that guy.
He's also a cop. There is a scene where Kevin James and his wife are having some kind of a disagreement about something. She's going to try to make him feel better, so she sees that there's a car wash happening with cheerleaders. So she pulls into the car wash to let the car wash happen, just let him watch the cheerleaders do the car wash to make him feel a little bit better about things.
Right.
And it turns out that there's another car ahead of them. The other car ahead of them has Chris Rock's kid and Steve Buscemi. Chris Rock's kid is trying to get is doing his driver's test. Steve Buscemi is the DMV employee that's giving him his test. They're going to get the car washed as well. The female cheerleaders decide to wash that car. And it's fun to see Steve Buscemi rocking out in the car because he plays a very dorky character.
Right.
And then they instead send the male cheerleaders over to wash Kevin James and his wife's car. And the male cheerleaders are actually consistent of a bunch of SNL cast, including Taran Killam, all the Lonely Island guys.
Nice.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
And so it's basically just a bunch of hairy guys rubbing up against the car the whole time. They're
right.
And they're in short shorts. Their crotches are rubbing up against the car. They're getting picked up. I think Jorma from Lonely Island gets picked up, and his ass is rubbed up against the windshield of the car.
Lord.
Yeah, I think Taran Killam fillets the antenna and gets soap in his mouth. It's a hilarious scene, but as part of the scene, Shaq is in nothing but his boxers. He's one of the other. He's somebody else's brother, and they're bald on top and have just the hair around the sides and the back.
Oh,
so
right.
He's got that kind of hair. He's completely naked except for boxers, and he's standing there while the cheerleaders are pouring soap and water down him and kind of lightly rubbing the soap on him. And Peter Dante's character goes, "No, you got to get in there real good." He grabs a sponge and he starts rubbing his nipple real hard and smiling. And Shaq's looking down. I'm like, what the hell? So it's a stupid movie, but it's a funny movie.
Yeah.
And we'll have to if you haven't seen it, you'll have to at some point because it's got some amazing cameos. Arnold Schwarzenegger's son is in it, the one he claims, or the one he's always claimed, I should say. The guy who was Jacob the wolf in Twilight, he's in it, and he actually has a fight scene with Adam Sandler in it. Great movie though, great funny movie. Risque humor, but you expect that from an Adam Sandler film.
Right. Oh, who's that now?
Anyway,
I know him. Taylor Lautner. That's his name.
Taylor Lautner, yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, like I was saying, I guess for the modern audiences, for the modern generation, that LeBron James is that kind of enough of a star to take the Michael Jordan role for this movie. I don't see it personally, but I'm not of this generation watching basketball at this time. You know what I mean? And he does seem to have more championships, I think, than anybody else does at this point. Mm-hmm. And he's been paid more than everybody else. So I'm guessing that's right. But that was my first concern with it. My second concern was honestly, oh great, who are they going to get to do the main soundtrack song for this one? Because I don't think they want to redo the other song. Maybe they do, but nobody can listen to the other song now.
It just hit me what you're talking about. Holy shit!
Because the song "I Believe I Can Fly" was almost, actually, it wasn't even almost. It was bigger than the movie Space Jam.
Oh yeah, that was serious major
movie.
top 10. I think it might have even hit number 1. Like it was.
No, it was number 1 for a while. Actually.
That's what I thought. It was everywhere.
That song,
referenced in other movies and shit, was nuts.
That song was at every assembly, graduations. I mean, that thing was just you could not get away from that.
Oh man!
I mean, the only other songs I've ever heard take over school events, and at least back when we were kids, right? I only heard 2 other songs that kind of took over school events in that way. Again, assemblies, graduations, sports things for schools, whatever. The only other ones I ever heard do that was the stupid Titanic song. Because after that thing came out, every single time there was any kind of a dance, that song had to be played.
Yep.
At least once.
Yep.
Sometimes 2 or 3 times. Fucking hate that song. And then the other one, this one maybe I think I had just graduated when this one came out, but it was the Vitamin C song that I don't even know the name of it. I just know it was Canon in D. It was based on the Canon in D progression.
That's called Graduation. I know the one.
It is called Graduation.
It is called Graduation. Yeah.
Because when that song came out, it was at every damn graduation I went to after it came out.
Well, it's kind of
every
built for it. Yeah, that was the point.
It was. But it's like, as it's playing, this was back when I didn't understand what Canon in D was, because I didn't take any instruments. I tried to play violin in junior high school, and my parents couldn't afford a violin. Then I was going to do the flute, and my parents couldn't afford a flute either. The only reason I was going to do a flute is because my mom had played one, so I figured she might be able to help me. But they couldn't afford to get me one, so I ended up not doing any music. I was 16 when I bought a guitar, and I bought it myself. So I didn't know what Canon in D was at the time, but I'm hearing the music and I'm like, this music sounds so familiar. I've heard this shit so many times before.
I know. That was what.
Why.
Yep. That, you know,
it
and that's why.
Back. For some reason, that music brings me back. I can't understand it.
Yep. That's what it was. Like that's the purpose of that song specifically, to just literally invoke that. Yeah, it evokes that response of, man, I've heard this before. What the fuck is it? Like it just gives you it. That's why I don't like it. That's half the reason why I don't like it. It's like it's so familiar that you know it's not original, but you can't fucking pin. For the longest time, until everybody started talking about Canon in D, nobody knew what the fuck it was. Like it just wasn't. Nobody had.
Well, actually, the thing is, every single person who took a music classes and played an instrument in junior high and high school.
Oh yeah,
every single one of them knew what Canon in D was. They all knew it because it's one of those things that they teach through all junior high and high school musical classes, because it's a chord progression that sounds good to the human ear. And so as you're playing it, it makes sense where it should go.
Yeah.
It sounds off if you don't hit things right. And you have instruments like cellos and violins that are for you and people like you and me who have learned how to play guitar, that they're a little daunting in the sense that just like playing a fretless bass, these things are fretless. So you don't get to look and see, oh, I got to put my finger here because that's where the little mark is for me to put my finger. As there's none of that, there's knowing where the notes are on the freaking string. And you know if you got that wrong because it sounds right. That chord progression sounds pleasing to our ear, which is why it's been used in so many songs. It's one of a couple of chord progressions, something we may talk about another time. I'll let you take your music hat off for that one and go through the couple of chord progressions that people don't know are, hey, guess what? All these songs have the same chord progression. Let me tell you why. The main reason why, the overarching reason why, is it sounds good to our ear for these things to be played this way.
Well, not only that, and that one was so, you know what? To be completely honest, in retrospect, I consider that song in itself to be a masterpiece, only because it takes something that everybody that is in any high school band is already familiar with. And it makes a popular song played at graduation immediately playable to the entire school band.
Exactly.
Everybody knows it already. It's that easy. Yep. And all you have to know, all you have to learn is the melody. And I honestly think they might have actually taken the melody of the vocals and lifted it from something else, because that progression and that vocal melody are so intertwined with each other that now if you learn those two things, every band on the planet can play that. Every high school band on the planet can play it. I think that's I can give credit where credit's due on taking that and turning it into a pop hit.
And that's the thing, is anybody that knows about it, instantly you can just tell them, just play Canon in D, and boom, you can play it. It's like, oh, I had no idea that was this song. Yep, that's this song. Yep. You just got to find the right rhythm for it.
Yeah,
that's the progression.
And even the long, I bet you when that first came out, and then the next generation of the next year or two afterwards of students that were introduced to this, okay, we're going to learn Paco Bell's Canon. Oh, that's Graduation. I know that song. Like, that would have happened at that time, right afterwards.
And then you have a couple of cool people. You have a couple of cool people that would have been my friends that would have noticed, oh wait, that sounds like Blues Traveler. But yeah.
Yep. Or Green Day.
But still. Or Green Day, yes. Or Green Day. Or isn't Zombie the same chord progression too?
No, that one's a different one.
Different key?
Yeah, that one's in minor.
That's the other 4-chord. That's the other 4-chord key or 4-chord progression. Anyway, moving on.
There's a few. We should go over those. Yeah, another time.
That song though, that I Believe I Can Fly, that thing was just so much huger. And of course, now I guess they can try to have somebody redo it, but who do you get to redo it? Who do you get that's going to want to? And do you want to tread in those waters? For those of you who don't know listening, that was a song done by R. Kelly before it was known about all the things that R. Kelly was doing. There's a few things that were known about him at that time, but they were pretty standard hip hop and R&B artist type stuff. Not the him being a player and sleeping with a bunch of different women and stuff. Which is pretty common for musicians in general, actually.
Yeah.
So all of the other stuff either hadn't happened yet or hadn't been found out about yet.
Oh, there was I'm
sure.
For the name of moving on to the established subject that we were considering, let's go down this rabbit hole at another. I would say at another time.
Yeah, of course,
because we could totally talk about that. That's some crazy shit.
Yeah. So we get to the point now. The thing that's coming up now, and this again, this movie has been made. They're getting ready for release on it, and more information is coming out about it. You're getting to see some stills of some of the characters, some ideas of some of the things that are happening, and there's now 2 major controversies that have stemmed from this movie. One of which is connected just to this movie at this point. The other of which is actually connected to a much larger kind of in-universe thing for Warner Brothers Animation, and these things have to do with 2 separate characters, but one of which will be appearing in the movie, and one of which, as part of this situation, won't be appearing in the movie. And these have kind of caused this new news that's happening, this new discussion that is happening,
right?
This new cancel culture thing that's coming up. And first, we're going to focus on the character that is not appearing in the Space Jam movie, and from what I understand, you can correct me because I think you've done a little bit more research on this than me, is not going to be appearing in any new. I'm saying that specifically. New Warner Brothers cartoons.
That's correct. That's correct.
I haven't heard about any of his stuff being no longer available at all, but that he will not be utilized in anything new.
Well, I do not know whether or not he will be or not be in the movie overall. But I do know that there is some extra information. I wanted to get into that because there is. Well, we'll talk about history. What we're talking about first, and we'll talk about. Should we do me before the break and then you after the break? As far as what I was talking about,
we're coming up on a good time for the break.
Okay.
So we'll take both topics after the break, because the one I think I can bookend on the end of yours.
Okay.
And so
I think it's very important.
Before we take the break here, I want people to know what the at least the first thing we're talking about. The first character that we're talking about is by some a very much loved character, and by others a character that's always had a little bit of questionability to him.
Yeah,
and that character is the character of Pepe Le Pew.
Yep.
So we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, Mike's done some research, which is always awesome. I love it when Mike does research. That means that I get to be the lazy one for the day.
Yep.
And Mike's going to go through some history and timeline with regards to the character and what exactly is happening right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll be back in just a moment.
All right.
Hey friends, this is Mike from the Xennial Chronicles reminding you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Xenchron, spelled Xenchron, to keep up to date on all things TXC. And please check out our official website, theXennialChronicles.com, or if that's too much to type, Xenchron.com. Thanks again for listening, and now, back to the show.
And we are back.
All right.
So, again, we're going to be talking about the controversy that is now surrounding Pepe Le Pew in regards to not just this new Space Jam movie, but I'm guessing Warner Brothers projects upcoming in the future. And this is where I'm kind of turning it over to you, sir, because as you did the research on this. This was a topic. It's actually interesting for everybody listening. There, when we have our little discussion before we start recording as to what we're going to talk about. Sometimes we've decided throughout the week. Sometimes we don't decide until right before we start the podcast. Sometimes I just tell Mike, trust me, I'll figure out something. And then the conversation goes off in weird directions and suddenly something happens.
Yes.
And then there's even one time that happened where we tried to have a conversation 3 different times and it just didn't work any of the 3 different times. That does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of that was technical difficulty. Some of that was just, it doesn't always work. But what was funny is we came to this today and Mike was asking me, you have a topic to talk about? And I was like, kind of, sort of. And he says, okay, because I have a topic. I'm like, okay, what's your topic? And this is the thing he'd done the research on, the thing that's happening right now with the character of Pepe Le Pew. And it was amusing because the one topic thing I thought to talk about was another thing to do with the Space Jam movie. And so this kind of, our brains are both in the same place, which is kind of weird and kind of nice, because it helps the storytelling and the discussions flow, I think, better. So what do you have to tell us about Pepe Le Pew today, sir?
Well, since you kind of went over the entirety of your you went over the entirety of like kind of the meaning of everything in the first half, so I'm just going to kind of get into what's going on. I'm going to open it up with what you were mentioning near the end of the segment.
Okay.
Of the previous segment. So basically, here's the deal. So there's this new Space Jam movie being made. LeBron James is starring in it. And apparently there is a bit of a social backlash that's happening because everybody's getting pissed that apparently Pepe Le Pew is being canceled, the latest victim of cancel culture. Like, we don't have other bigger fish to fucking fry right now, but that's completely beside the point. Okay, so the issue here comes down to the fact that we don't know why it feels like it came out of nowhere. But I have a theory, and I'm going to kind of go over some stuff, because I have a theory about why what happened. I consider it to be possibly very smart, very important. Yes, very much. So here's the deal. There is a scene that is supposedly made in this new Space Jam movie that includes Pepe Le Pew in it specifically. He is the central character of the scene. And I don't know all the direct details. I do know that the actress has spoken out about it because she filmed the scene. So the scene was filmed, it was produced, and was put into post-production. But apparently what happens in the scene is Pepe tries to hit on a girl. I don't know where they're at. There's no idea for scene settings or anything. But he hits on a girl who is apparently drinking something, and she refuses his advances, and in classic Pepe Le Pew fashion, he continues to pursue to the point where she gets to the point where he pisses her off. She pours a drink on him and walks off. She's super pissed, right? And there is a bit of confusion on Pepe's end. Like, I don't understand. I was just being flirtatious. What's going on? Like, I don't understand why would she act like this, right? Completely understood from the context of Pepe's character because of who is established to be. And this ends up moving into a one-on-one kind of man-to-man conversation, let's say, between LeBron James and Pepe Le Pew. Hearing me say the phrase is really kind of awkward, but it really comes down to LeBron James has a conversation with Pepe Le Pew about consent. So there is some level of self-awareness that Warner Brothers takes to Pepe's character to help move him into a more modern age, right? Something about understanding what consent actually is and how it's not cool to not take no for an answer, right? Big kind of a deal. Right. Well, there's a problem with this, and I think that, and this is kind of what it goes, this is where I'm going to go. Like, there's an issue with this. The problem here is that Pepe is established as a character now he was introduced in 1945. He's been around for a long time. He's about...
Well, that makes sense. I'm not sure what you're going to reveal yet, but that makes sense as to some of the things I understand about the character. But proceed.
Right. Okay. So he's been around since 1945. Now, this is kind of like he is a bit of a product of the of just the mindset of the culture at the time, especially in America. One of the I'll just get into it because this is going to sound bad. This is going to sound like I'm trying to market him as some terribly made character that was just this. It sounds like I'm trying to do this. I literally am not. This is literally the actual. I've done some research on this. This is actually, and I mean literally in the literal sense, not the figurative, what was made to be him at the beginning, right? So Pepe Le Pew was created by Chuck Jones in 1944 or 45. Now, this is during the height of World War II. It's coming up near the end. Yeah. Now, for a long time, we've had this. There was this intermingling. The French were some people that we had saved. There was also a bit of a negative connotation to the French. They were seen as weak at the time, which I find really funny because they were the French Revolution is one of the biggest revolutions, political revolutions in world history. Period.
I mean, for anybody that wants to be down in any way, shape, or form on the French, I do want to remind them that without French intervention in the United States Revolutionary War, the colonies don't gain their independence from England. The French stepped in and helped all of that happen. They supplied armaments, they supplied ships, something that the colonies didn't have, and they supplied men as well to help fight off the British. Now, they did it for their own purposes. They were already having issues with Britain, so they were more than glad to make Britain's situation worse by taking away colonies that were making them a lot of money and giving them aid. But so you can't say it was necessarily altruistic, but
no.
France was key in American independence.
Yes, and very much so.
At the time, during that time, you're dealing with the fact that France had been kind of been screwed over in both World War I and then again in World War II.
Yeah.
It was one of the countries that got areas of it just completely decimated by wars that other countries were involved in. And yes, France was overrun by Nazi Germany, and they, contrary to popular belief, because the popular belief in the U.S. is that the French just basically gave up. They didn't. They were overrun, but instead of having the same response as some of the other countries in their military response, and therefore having all of their major cities completely destroyed, they instead kind of allowed themselves to be overtaken while at the same time doing underground resistance of huge amounts against the German armies.
Yeah. They were still working. They were still kicking ass. They were still fighting. It just on the outside, they looked like they had surrendered.
And part of the reasoning for that was to help save French lives and to help save the French history and their cities. I mean, you don't have the sites that you have in Paris if they had tried to completely stand against the oncoming German army.
Exactly.
Those things would have been destroyed. The Louvre would have been destroyed. We're talking, as it was, the Louvre was robbed of a bunch of stuff that was eventually gotten back, but these areas would have been destroyed. So France dealt with it in a way that, yes, was deemed in many ways cowardly at the time. But it's funny enough, if you watch any kind of World War II type movies, there's always French resistance people helping out and, doing something to help American soldiers or British soldiers, allies of any kind, to get shit done, And that's because the French were still working. They weren't confronting it head on. They were confronting it in a way that actually helped to save more French lives and make the occupation of France easier for the majority of the citizens, as opposed to what happened in many of the other countries. When you think about the fact that the people of the United States can try to stand as high and mighty as they want about it, we were an ocean away from Germany. We were an ocean away from Japan. The French had seen firsthand what the German army would do when it rolled through the various areas. the destruction, the taking over, the killing in mass of citizens. They were doing what they could to protect their citizenry. But again, during that time and even persisting later on, the American feelings about the French, the American ideas and caricature of the French was not necessarily a good one.
No, not at all. It was extremely negative, and this is kind of an inspiration for Pepe's character, right? So yes. Pepe is an amalgamation of a large amount of French stereotypes all thrown into one. So basically, if we look at Pepe the character real quick, obviously he's French, duh, but the rest of it is kind of like all French stereotype stuff, right? He's a skunk.
He is a skunk,
yes. He is a skunk.
And skunks are stinky.
Skunks are stinky, which is already like strike one, because you're looking at, let's consider he's a male French skunk, which means that one of the stereotypes is that French men don't know how to bathe, or French people don't know how to bathe in general. That is a horrible
so they're stinky
stereotype, and it was right there in front. The second one is probably the worst one, and I consider counts for 2 strikes here, because under the guise of being overtly romantic, he doesn't know how to take no for an answer. And the reason
which was another stereotype.
Yeah, it's another stereotype, but here's a kicker, right? On multiple occasions, he hits without being all right, so just to be blunt about it, because I don't know how
Be blunt.
Pepe Le Pew is pretty much a sexual predator.
Yes.
Like, there's no way about it. And then on top of that, let's just take all the cartoons he's in. There's always this this bastardization of French and English that's used in the cartoons every time. Short French phrases interspersed with English. Like, I don't know how to... okay. I just looked it up. I'm on the Wikipedia page looking at it right now. Apparently, that's called Franglois, which is it's like Spanglish, right? Spanish English. Franglois is French English, which I didn't know that was a terminology. It would make sense if it was, but yeah. So that's the establishment of this character. This is already a bad spot to go to.
What they're already doing with this character, with the creation of this character, was caricaturing in an animal form an entire country worth of people, and specifically the male population of this country worth of people. And the way they went about it with the language, with the skunk and the smell, this is all trying to demonize the French, these Frenchmen as much as possible. Basically.
Yes, exactly.
And I would take it even a deeper layer, if I may.
Yeah.
There's a deeper layer to this in that the love interest that he is usually going after is typically a cat.
Yeah,
a female cat. Sometimes even not female, but a female cat typically that he's going after. Sometimes the cat gets white paint on them to make it look like they are a skunk instead of just a black cat.
Yes.
But it is a female cat. So if you were really to dig deep into this, it's supposed to be the misunderstanding. Oh, he misunderstands that it's not a skunk. Ha, ha, ha. Funny. But this is in some way even making it so that it's attacking the French people even further by having them be a completely different species of animal than the cat that he is going after.
Right.
Because part of the caricature that was kind of being anytime you have any kind of ethnic or racial group that is caricatured in some way, most of it comes from most of the caricature that's created, the person that creates the caricature of this, they come from a place of being afraid of that person taking part of society from themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does it make sense where I'm talking here?
Yeah.
So the caricature and idea was these stinky oversexed Frenchmen, which by the way, that's another that has another thing, another layer insofar as America's view on sex and how it's done, how it's talked about, all those things, as opposed to European views on sex. Europeans are far more liberal and open about sexual things, whereas Americans are very much more closed off as a society about sexual things. So you have this oversexed, stinky creature that is it's a completely different species. This makes it this is again even more of a you know, I don't know if racist is the right word to use for it, but even more prejudice adding in that he is a completely different species than the cat that he is pursuing. The cat can't understand him because the cat just meows.
Right.
And that's a whole nother thing. The fact that the cat never speaks any words and only meows. That's a whole misogynistic thing that we can possibly touch on later. I don't know if you're gonna go there with it. The fact that she has no voice other than to physically refuse the advances. But yeah, this is all just a caricature that was built, which was very, very common, especially during wartime situations. I mean, you can go. The thing is, this existed and was created as a cartoon. So at that time, you could go into comic books and find that you have comic book heroes that are supposed to be these upstanding, wonderful heroes that are fighting Germans and Japanese, and the caricature that is done of these German and Japanese characters. Hell, the character of the Mandarin, a villain for Iron Man, is based on various Asian stereotypes that were prevalent during the various times of conflict and wars between these countries. Because at that time, the American people were sadly that's kind of how they felt about people that were that were different than them, especially that were involved in the war efforts. I mean, if you don't know about Japanese internment camps during World War II, this is the same time frame that these type of things were happening. That these people from these other countries, the United States had very specific views about them, and they were very prevalent. Now, I'm not saying that makes these things right at all. I'm saying this is the environment that Pepe Le Pew was created in and became introduced to the public in.
Yes. Yeah. And that's
sorry, continue.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. So you know what's really funny? Here's a good clue as to how bad this was. So Pepe Le Pew's cartoons, I just found out, have been translated and redubbed in French, like his old shorts. Except when they did it, they had a French actor obviously dub his lines, but they turned him into an Italian.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Which is
because the French would have the same view of the Italians as the Americans would have of the French.
Yeah, exactly.
It is about having prejudice for people of a different country, a different background, a different ethnicity.
That's the point I'm getting at.
Clearly, the clear purpose of the character was to make joke and make fun of societal differences in a prejudiced fashion.
Exactly. He's a racist trope, which is hilarious to me that not only is he a racist trope against French people, so that when the cartoons were translated to French, they just turned him into a racist trope of Italians based upon that's mind-boggling to me. It's like, it's obvious at this point to me that this is a bad call of a character to even have, period, especially nowadays. But so there's even more as the story continues. Oh, yes. What was that?
That's the thing to understand. That's the thing to understand is at the time this character was created, this is how we can see that there's been a shift in the way society views things. At the time that the character was created, that was considered normal to pigeonhole people by their country of origin and or their ethnic background.
Yes,
that was the descriptor of people. Oh, he's a Frenchman. He's this, and this. Oh, he's an Irishman. He drinks all the time and loves to eat potatoes. You know,
right?
He's an Italian. If he designed a helicopter, it would go wop wop wop.
Oh,
and yes,
dude,
I did
good
that.
Lord,
joke.
Dude.
No, these are the things that don't you remember that joke from when we were kids? It was still pervasive when we were kids.
What? No, yes. I don't remember that.
That was
where the fuck was that from?
That was still pervasive. At least I remember it still being pervasive from when I was a kid. That's how the racism and these prejudices continue through things. How many jokes did you know about Polish people for being dumb when you were growing up? Admit how many you knew, because I knew a bunch of them.
You know what? Those are ones that never stuck with me because I never I knew Polish people. Like I had a couple of friends that were Polish, and I heard the jokes, but I didn't really hear them more pervasively until I was an adult. I didn't really hear them very much as a kid, or at least I don't remember them. But I never got or understood
a bunch
them.
of them from a kid.
Yeah, I never got or understood those. I guess I was lucky. I was lucky in that regard. I guess I don't know.
That's one way to look at it, and I'm glad you can look at the positive of it. But yeah, the premise being, of course, that Polish people are just dumb. Why? The fun part was that was never explained to me as to why Polish people are dumb.
That's
but that was the premise of the joke, is that Polish people are dumb.
I had heard that before, but I had never understood it. It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing is this is what was considered the norm at the time. This is what the acceptable thing was. And if you found one of these people from these other countries with these other ethnic backgrounds that was not any of these preconceived things that you thought they would be, suddenly that's, you could be friends with that one. In fact, it's a trope in movies that you meet somebody that's from the country that you have these preconceived notions about, and you think that they're all this way, but then you come to find out that they're not this way, so you can trust that one because that's the one good one. That's prejudice, people. That's still prejudice, even if you're like, no, I know this one. This one's a good one. Not sure about the rest of them. That's still prejudice,
right? Just
because you know that guy. Anyway, this is the kind of scene where all of these things are happening, and the scene of the start for this feeling of this cancel culture happening with this is these prejudices have still continued to be passed down.
Exactly, and that's one of the issues that I take with what's going on here. I'll continue here because there's a bit more that I wanted to present. So since about the 70s or 80s, probably about the 80s, Pepe's popularity started to decline because people started getting kind of aware of it. And there are some things that he just kind of tends to drop off because he didn't have a lot of staying power in a lot of these. Like, he was basically reduced to cameos at this point. There was nothing that featured him. Yeah. There's stuff that featured Daffy Duck in a starring role. There's stuff that featured, obviously, like Bugs Bunny and a lot of the bigger ones. Porky Pig, not so much. He's kind of always been a blank slate. There's not really a lot. But there's stuff that starred Sylvester and Tweety. There was a whole cartoon series based on that. But Pepe has always been somebody that's been reduced to tertiary roles, cameo roles, stuff like that, ever since those original shorts. Right? Now,
yes.
Now, from there, it keeps getting worse. So there are a total, looking at Pepe's back catalog, okay? Looking at Pepe's back catalog, there are a total of 18 shorts that were done between 1945 and 1962. Okay?
Only 18 shorts?
A total of 18 shorts. Yes.
I got to say, I've probably seen every single one of them.
You probably have, and so have I.
I thought there were more than that.
There are no, and here, get this. Here's the crazy part about it, okay? There's nothing I remember. Now, this is personal anecdote here. But I got to ask you something, because this is something I don't remember. Was there any negative connotation, any negative consequences that happened to Pepe in any of the cartoons? Like, actually negative. Like, did he ever get in trouble for what he was doing? I mean, real trouble. Or was it always painted as some romanticized idea of... Sometimes he gets into situations.
I remember him getting smacked a few times by the cat.
Right, but then he just continues to pursue her afterwards. There was one, you're right. There was one where he gets trapped in a cage, I think, with a wild cat, and it fucks him up. And then he's like, "Oh, she likes to play rough or whatever." Like, that was the narrative of the character. Like, meaning that he's into getting, like, that essentially means that he's into getting his ass kicked too. Like, that is. People are showing this shit to 4-year-old kids, man.
Here's the thing. That part I can actually be okay with.
Him continuing after he gets here's the thing, because that's just not learning a lesson.
No, him being in the whole thing with him in the cage with a wildcat, and the wildcat scratches him up a bit.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, I like to play rough." I could be okay with that if there was a slight redesign of the character, and I will explain what the slight redesign of the character is.
Okay.
If
I got to hear this.
If every time he was rebuffed by a cat, right? He encounters Cat A. He tries to get to hook up with Cat A. Cat A refuses him.
Yes.
If he walks away and then pursues, he finds another one that he pursues. So instead of it being the same cat he pursues the entire episode, it's a new cat. Cat refuses him. He walks away from that cat, finds another one. That cat refuses him, walks away from that cat. He could have 10 cats in the episode, and each one he tries to go up to, and they're refusing him. Then he's just some dude that wants to get it on all the time, and he keeps being told no, so fine, whatever. He finds himself in the cage with the cat at the end, and she scratches him up and is like, oh, okay, she likes it rough. All that is some dude that just wants to have sex a bunch. And has control of the fact that if somebody says no, all right, they say no.
Yeah, then you move on to
the next one I'm going to try to have sex with.
Okay, so then
that would make that I could be okay with, but
that is not what's happening here. That is never what happens. Okay, so as a matter of fact, the only thing where there is a role reversal, the only sketch where there was a role reversal was the fifth one. It's called For Sentimental Reasons. Cute, right? Where at the end of it, the cat is drugged with a love potion and becomes the pursuer and locks him in a room full of perfume. Yeah. And then, role reversal, right? She becomes or she's either struck with a love potion or drunk or something like that. Something happens in the cartoon. That one, by the way, won the Academy Award in 1949 for Best Animated Short Film, which is, okay.
Again, not surprising for the time period.
No, not really. But hindsight's 20/20 on that, right? But looking at that, see, the issue here when you look at, so I'm sure that Warner knew and understood the character, right? But they also knew that his popularity was starting to decline. Because after this, let's see, he was supposed to have a cameo, I think, there's some other stuff that happens in between this time, right? He's supposed to have a cameo in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He gets dumped from the cameo. And he had a couple of cameo appearances and other stuff. There's actually one where he has an established relationship with Penelope the cat, by the way, that's the name of the cat, Penelope the cat.
Yeah.
There is a animated short called...
I do remember that later on in I'm going to say it's probably the mid to late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
That cat finally got a name. And yes, there was some establishment to the relationship that he pursues her all the time. And she says no, but it's, she said she refuses the pursuit to some extent. But in this, it seems to be, at least it's played off from my memory, that it is still a consensual thing that he's constantly flirting with her and she's constantly rebuffing him. It's part of like a maybe a sub-dom type play, some kind of play that they do. And they're both involved in it. But the problem is, again, that's like I said, that's how it may be played off, but there's still nothing that is implicit. And again, we're talking about stuff that is being shown to kids without any context or education being involved in it with it.
Right. Exactly.
And that's problematic.
Yes, exactly.
Because if you can't explain the fact in real words to children that they're seeing something that is about role play between two consenting adults when it comes to affection and sexuality and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't explain what at least some of the basic dynamics of something like that is, and that both people are consenting to the role play and understand the purpose of the role play, and instead you just show it to them and say, yeah, it's all okay. You have to get them to understand that there's conversation that happens with that. There's understanding that happens. There's making rules and boundaries that happen, and not just in those relationships, but in relationships in general. There are specific boundaries that happen. There are specific things that are rules that are set up for how people interact, especially when it comes to their sexual interactions, at least in healthy relationships. And so to have that situation portrayed like that, without any kind of context at all is unhealthy to show that, because you're not giving the people watching it the full scope of what's necessary to have that kind of back and forth interplay.
Right.
That it's you get more context when you see Gomez and Morticia Addams. And in many ways, you can draw some parallels. There's French going on. There's a bunch of kissing, but it is completely understood that Morticia is 100% okay with all of Gomez's advances and is a willing participant by her choice in everything that is happening, because you see those decisions being made right then and there. You see that bold as day that it is 100% consent on both sides of that situation. And that leaves a murky area where, Penelope the cat and him may be in some kind of relationship, but what's the relationship where he's still flirting with her and she's still kind of pushing him away? What's going on there?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, dude, like Gomez and Morticia Addams are literally they are the best, probably top. They are the top model romantic relationship in television history. Period. There's nobody that's ever hit that. I haven't seen a romantic relationship between a married couple that actually shows. There's that actually shows it what a healthy relationship looks like. Better
Aside
than
that.
Better than Gomez and Morticia Addams. It's fantastic. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to wrap the rest of this up. There's one more point I wanted to hit, and then we're going to keep moving forward, and I'll talk about my theory. So,
okay.
So apparently there was supposed to be, I found this out while I was looking it up, there was supposed to be a feature film that was to be centered around Pepe Le Pew that came out in 2010. It was going to be voiced, he was going to be voiced by Mike Myers, of all people, which I'm really confused and a little curious as to what that would sound like, with Mike Myers voicing, Pepe Le Pew,
doing
which is odd.
French accent?
Yeah, Mike Myers doing a French accent. Which, I mean, his Irish accent is touchy at best and sounds more Scottish anyway. Personally, I think.
Yeah, and his Scottish accent is pretty decent for American.
His impersonation of Lorne Michaels is absolutely fantastic, but that's beside the point. And his Scottish accent's all right. It's not bad, but it's definitely not Irish like I've heard him try to do on SNL. But anyways, but get this. Here's life imitating art a little bit. So the guy who wrote the film, his name was Max Landis. He was penning the script for the film, and in 2017, it was discovered that there were sexual assault allegations against him.
Okay.
Which I find personally a little bit funny. But and then from there, here's the deal, man. And I'll get to my there's also the Dave Chappelle thing, which is crazy, right? Essentially, hit back in 2000, Dave Chappelle did a stand-up sketch, right? Where essentially, I can only paraphrase because it's been that long since I've seen it. But it was brought to light more recently in the wake of all this canceling thing that they're doing with Pepe or whatever, right? And in the sketch he's talking about, or in that skit, he's talking about how he was like, oh yeah, showing his son cartoons from when he was a kid. Oh, Pepe Le Pew, he's hilarious. You're going to see this, and he sits there and watches it with him. And as he watches it, he was starting to get surprised at the actual context of it, looking at it as an adult and realizing that what Pepe Le Pew is doing is sexual harassment, stalking, and abuse. It's assault. And
it is
essentially rape culture. And on top of that, the fact that it is mocking French people. It's like, this is racist as fuck. The idea of it is fantastic. That he was able to bring that kind of awareness to the role in itself. And he got like a ton of laughs. And I remember it was hilarious when he put it out. When he said it, I personally thought it was hilarious. But it also shows an awareness of, man, you're not supposed to fucking do shit like that.
No, and it's the awareness of, as much as there is the racial connotation for it, to me, it does very much, and this is again one of the things that Chappelle was pointing out. It does very much encourage the sexual abuse, sexual harassment, rape culture. In that it's literally, if you keep pushing enough, that you're going to eventually be able to get what you need out of the girl.
Right.
You just keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
How many times have you heard about, like, I've heard those types of stories as romantic stories. Like, at first I told him, I've heard that from people, from people. They were just like, I told him no, I blew him off, and he just wouldn't take no for an answer, and now we've been married for 50 years or something like that. It always rubs me the wrong way every time I hear it. I don't like hearing that. It doesn't make sense.
An example of something that is, again, you know how important movies are to me and how much I talk about them. I was saying earlier how much I love romantic comedies. I love romantic movies, period. If I say a romantic movie isn't good, it's, again, not because I'm a guy or I hate on romantic movies. It's because it's not a good romantic movie.
Right.
I got a little off subject, but I had a lot of people that were upset with me when the movie Brokeback Mountain came out, and I wasn't a fan of Brokeback Mountain. Because I do have friends and even back then had friends that were extremely liberal and were like, why is this beautiful love story and we haven't had a cinematic love story like I'm like, I get there hasn't been a big, huge cinematic love story like this, with it being two men that are in love in a major studio release that is, up for Oscar stuff. Although, I mean, Philadelphia, if you really want to go back to that one, which won Oscars, and that's Tom Hanks playing a gay lawyer with AIDS, and his significant other in that movie is Antonio Banderas in one of his early Hollywood roles.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if that doesn't sit it for you, okay, fine, we'll go to this one. But the problem I had with it was I like Heath Ledger as an actor. I'm not a fan of Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor. I didn't believe the love story. It wasn't believable to me. I didn't see them really in love. And I had a lot of people that were hating on me for it, saying, oh, you just don't like the movie because it's a gay couple. No, that has nothing to do with it. I just didn't believe the romance. There's been a lot of movies that I've watched where I don't believe the romance. I can't see it. I can't see the love between people. But one of these romantic movies that women typically love, they touted as one of their big movies. It took an actor who was at that point a B-list actor who was hired for the job on the movie because he wasn't a good-looking guy that girls would swoon over. Literally, that's why he was hired for this part, okay? He was just an average-looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
Girls wouldn't be swooning over him, so he was perfect for this part because they didn't want a good-looking guy that the girl would swoon over. That wasn't the point of it. The movie I'm talking about, and I hate this film. I've seen it one time. I refuse to watch it again. It even has one of my favorite older actors in it, James Garner. I love James Garner. I can watch most things with James Garner because he's just a fun guy to watch. But the frickin' movie, The Notebook.
Oh, I've never seen The Notebook. I hear about The Notebook all the time.
Don't watch The Notebook, please don't. Because women tout this as some great movie, but basically what happens is the girl in the movie is engaged to be with somebody else. She's with this other guy. But Ryan Gosling's character, and this is Ryan Gosling we're talking about, who's now considered this big sex symbol.
Wait a minute, he's supposed to be the average dude that's not attractive or whatever?
Exactly.
Ryan fucking Gosling? Really?
He was a B-list actor at that point. He had been on Mickey Mouse Club, lived with Justin Timberlake's family when he was on Mickey Mouse Club because he's Canadian.
Oh.
So he lived with Justin Timberlake's family. Justin Timberlake's mom was his legal guardian during that time because they filmed in Florida. So he had to live down there in Florida. So he lived with Justin's family.
Dude, if we're looking at like average not relatively majorly attractive, they gotta fucking they need to take their standards down a notch, I guess.
Again, at the time, he wasn't considered your normal attractive leading man. He was the only other movie credit he really had at that time was playing one of the football players in the movie Remember the Titans.
Oh, well, I've never seen Remember the Titans.
He was not well known at all. Remember the Titans, fun movie to watch, terrible historical accuracy, but you expect that out of most movies that are supposed to be about historical stuff. Fun movie to watch though. Really good roles by a few people. Ethan Suplee is great in the movie. There's a couple other guys that I can't think of the name of the actors right now, but they were really good in the movie. But it's a little heavy-handed because it's about, racism and that kind of stuff. And those movies sometimes have a tendency to be a little heavy-handed and things. Huh. But still fun. One of my favorite sports movies to watch. But he wasn't a big actor for being, he wasn't going to be the leading man at that time. He was chosen because of that. This movie made him that. And he continually badgers his character, continually badgers the girl over and over again, to the point of at one point they're on a Ferris wheel. He climbs up the Ferris wheel and is hanging from it and threatens to let go of the Ferris wheel and fall to his death if she won't go out on a date with him. This is the romantic movie that women love and that turned Ryan Gosling into a leading man, a superstar, and a heartthrob. This is what did it. This is perpetuating that culture. This is the same culture that's being perpetuated by the Pepe Le Pew character of, if you just wear her down long enough, eventually. And the thing is, you see, you can go back and see it if you know what you're looking for, if you know what markers to look for in movies and in the conversations in films. It's a storytelling technique that the male lead and the female lead don't like each other at first, and they fight and they do their thing, and then that's one of them. But then in a twist on it, the male is making advances, but the female is constantly rebuffing the advances until finally she gives in and she realizes how much she really cares about the person. So if you keep pushing and keep asking hard enough and long enough, they're going to give in. And when they don't give in after you do that, when you keep doing all that stuff that you're taught to do by these cartoons and these movies, you keep pushing, and they don't end up wanting to be with you. You know what you end up getting then? You get up in this is how the incel movement starts. Yeah. Because they believe that by all of this, by this cultural phenomenon and this idea of pushing the women for sex, and you push and push and push and you're going to get it. The belief is men are owed sex by women. The male is owed sex by the woman. That's the goal. You push until you get it, because that's what you're supposed to get. Pepe Le Pew did. He pushed and pushed and pushed. And you're right. No major repercussions for the pushing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so you said you had a theory as to what's going on here. What's your theory on this?
So, all right. So here's the deal. Basically, I think Warner Brothers, one of the opportunities they had, they had thought that they had in front of them, was to take the character of Pepe Le Pew and the mindset of that, exactly what you just mentioned, and update it for a more current climate, a current romantic climate, let's say. So they write the scene out, they put it together, they make him a more considerate, aware character in that scene. Okay? Now, here's the problem with doing that. And this is where I think Warner Brothers went with it. Now, let's take the backlash and all the bullshit out of it real quick. Let's just leave it. This is Warner making their own decision. They get the scene, they take it, they produce it. Okay? They take a look at the scene, and then they go, okay, we've updated Pepe for a current modern audience. This is great. And then they realize that the entire back catalog that Pepe Le Pew stars in is nothing but sexual predation and assault. In all of them, every one of those 18 sketches that are from 1945 to 62 include sexual assault, rape culture, and relentless pursuit, unwanted, relentless romantic pursuit. And that is the only catalog they have that stars him. There's nothing else. There's no films that he did.
There's nothing else to define the character.
Nothing else defines the character except literally him being a sexual predator. They can't do that. So now they can't write the scene that updates him for the adults because it introduces him in a kid's film to other kids. Other kids are going to want to see him and go, oh, who's that? Mom, let's get more cartoons of that. Or parents that are not necessarily aware. And what are they going to do? They're going to put those cartoons in front of their kids and have them watch those, not realizing that what those lessons are teaching is the antithesis of the actual scene itself. It creates a severely complex situation that they would rather avoid entirely. So rather than putting the scene out in the film and go, okay, we're retiring him, because what are you going to do? That's going to pull more attention towards that character. So
I get your point there.
Instead, they're like, you know what? We need to just retire the character. Cut the scene. We can't use him in anything anymore. There's no reason to use him. He doesn't have a positive root. There's no positive root to his character. So that's it. They had to call it and cut it. And then from there, everything goes haywire. You know, everybody starts being told that they got to be mad by whoever the hell they follow that thinks it's a good idea to create that controversy on their own. And then we get to this current state of mind.
Well, and I one of the things I find most amusing about it is, as you're saying, this isn't one of those situations where you had a massive writing campaign because Pepe Le Pew was going to make an appearance in Space Jam.
Right.
Or they were going to be making new Pepe Le Pew cartoons because he hadn't been having any new cartoons made. He'd just been making appearances and things. And so, you know, just little cameo bits in stuff. Maybe the butt of a joke for things. There was no real new content. This was not something this was not a character that was being used on a regular basis. And so nobody was trying to cancel this. This is Warner Brothers having a realization that this was possibly a character they couldn't deal with anymore. They couldn't update in a way to make it appropriate for the modern audiences without, again, like you say, having to deal with the back catalog. And that's the only thing that existed of the back catalog.
Right.
There's nothing that they can point to and say, no, that's not the only thing about this character. It literally is the only thing about this character.
Exactly. It makes him
all that exists.
Exactly. He's a one-dimensional character. There's no more depth to him as a foundation. So because there's been no development, there's nothing to fall back on to actually present as a catalog. And therefore, you're going to create more problems. Because imagine if the scene were to come out. The scene would come out and do exactly what's happening. You would end up having a large backlash against the character to cancel the character entirely. Now, They've got two choices. They've got people that are going to call for the scene to come out, of which that's already happened. Or you're going to have people see the scene and then call for the character to be canceled after the fact. And I honestly think Warner made the best decision in this regard.
Well, I'll stress it again. This is a company just like the estate of Dr. Seuss. Just like I remember reading something from Dolly Parton. She had said something about the fact that she didn't realize that using the word Dixie might have racist connotation at any point.
Right.
Until somebody brought it to her attention. And the moment that she realized it, she stopped using it.
Yeah.
For talking with crowds, because it's very simple just to stop using a word that might offend other people. And so let's just not do it. These are the companies deciding that they don't want to, with this new modern era, with this new way of looking at the world, they don't want to be supporting these specific creations anymore that no longer fit and no longer work within what the modern world is happening. And it's an idea of, again, moving forward, changing with the world as it changes around you, not staying stagnant and clinging on to the things of the past for no other reason except for that's how it has always been. And for me, I can even remember back to my earliest memories of Pepe Le Pew watching those cartoons was the fact that I always felt bad for the cat because this guy was just relentlessly pursuing her.
Yes.
I can say a lot of that was brought to my mind and my attention by my mother, in the sense that she, with her viewpoints on things, made me as a boy growing up, as a male growing up, far more aware of the areas in culture where misogyny, male dominated things, the mistreatment of women is present in a way that is, outright visible. And then the way that it's not as visible, the way that it's hidden, and how to look for specific clues, specific phrases, specific things that happen that show that there is a difference in the way that men and women are treated, a difference in the rules for men and women. So I admittedly may have been far more sensitive to it than many people were. I learned things at a younger age, as we've discussed already before, than most people did because of the way my mother handled things. But this is, to me, it's being seen as I see it as a beautiful thing that we are in our lifetime seeing some of these changes where you have this character who is literally defined only as being a predatory racial stereotype that has nothing else, no other. There are certain of Bugs Bunny's cartoons that have been removed, certain Mickey Mouse cartoons that have been removed, certain other characters that have had questionable individual cartoons, but the characters still thrive and still exist because there's multi-dimension to these characters. There's various layers. There's other parts of these characters that are not just the one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That is what Pepe Le Pew is as a character. He's literally one thing. Interesting to note, another character that has not been featured in things, and many years ago when he stopped being featured in things, there was a huge uproar about that as well. Yosemite Sam has been, for Warner Brothers, has been relegated to an almost non-existent role in things.
That makes sense.
And part of that has to do with his level of violence and anger. But what's funny is that's a caricature of literally an uneducated white guy with a gun.
Yeah.
And that's another one that he's only a one-dimensional character.
Yep.
That's all he is.
Exactly.
He's a hick with a southern drawl, not very smart, actually Texas drawl, not very smart, and solves all his problems by shooting things.
Yeah.
And so a one-dimensional character. You phase out of that one-dimensional character because at a time and a place, those things were more acceptable to make jokes of. But as times change, as the world moves on, as understanding and awareness moves on, those things, instead of like we said last time, were they ever right to do and say? No, they were never right to do and say, but they were socially acceptable. These things have become no longer socially acceptable.
Exactly.
The world has moved on from them. And keep in mind, for all of those who are complaining about this, but were a part of the movements in the 1960s for civil rights, and they still, as our older generation, because there are people that I'm sure you both and I know that are of the older generation than us, the Gen Xers and even the Boomers,
mm-hmm.
that were champions as much as they could be at the time for racial equality, and we know a few that, while there's some lingering things that they don't realize are racist until it's pointed out to them.
Mm-hmm.
There are a good number of them that were the first generation in America to be less racist. Right? That'd be a good way of saying it.
Yeah, that would be a good way of putting it.
More accepting specifically of Black Americans being on an equal level with white Americans and having the same capabilities for things, having the same things available to them. Their parents, the generations before them, their parents, their grandparents, fought like crazy for Black Americans not to be on that equal level because it was changing the culture. It was that change.
Exactly.
And the society had started to move on, and we're continuing to move on and holding on to these relics, even of our own past. Holding on to some of these relics are not necessarily helpful for us to move on and be better, be more enlightened, and to treat the people around us better. We do not need to be showing kids this example of how if you are just continually persist with trying to sexualize your relationship with a woman, it'll work out for you. Or more importantly, even than it eventually working out for you, there will be no repercussions for it. They need to understand there will be repercussions because you need to respect another person's body. You need to respect another person's choices and preference on things. You need to respect the word no. Yeah. Regardless, you need to respect the word no. And that's hey, good on them for Warner Brothers. And yet, again, this is one of those things that gets us. The other thing that I was going to discuss with the Space Jam movie is on a similar line. We can just touch on it real quickly. The character of Lola Bunny, which was originally introduced in the first Space Jam movie, is going to be in this movie as well.
Yes.
And there are people up in arms because Lola Bunny has received a redesign in her animation. Specifically, the problem with the redesign that people have is her bosom, which was since she's an anthropomorphic rabbit, her bosom, which it looks human, or at least is located in the human location.
Right.
Which, if any of you ever had pet rabbits, they're very much more like your dogs or cats. Their nipples are more towards their stomach area, and they have multiple of them. They do not have breasts in any relation similar to a human female's breasts.
Good Lord.
Lola Bunny from Space Jam had human female placement breasts and had a rather what's the right word I want to use? Rather visible and round female human style buttock.
She was a very anthropomorphized. She was designed to be a hot character. She was a sexy character, quote unquote. She was designed to be like that. She was meant to be attractive.
And in the newer installment, she was a
sexualized character is the proper context that I should
very
use.
very much a sexualized character. In the newer Space Jam movie, she does not have as evidently visible bosom. In fact, little to none, and does not have the huge, gigantic, fat ass.
So she looks more like Bugs. She looks like a cartoon rabbit.
She looks more like just a female version of Bugs. And none of the fake bunny boobs and the fake bunny ass.
People are losing their shit over that.
People are losing their shit over it because
God.
she's designed to not be sexy anymore. Here's the thing. This is the exact same thing in that this is the culture that Pepe Le Pew was spawned in and created. This culture of men needing to have everything sexualized for them. Sex is owed them in some way, shape, or form. This sexualized bunny is no longer sexualized for them anymore.
Oh no, how dare they?
Taken away. And it's like I said, these things are interconnected because it's the continuation of this exact same type of culture. Plus these are, you
cannot have an argument against that on behalf of your kids. You can't do that.
But people are up in arms about.
Well, they're not doing it on behalf of their kids. I'll tell you that right now.
No, it's on behalf of they're destroying the thing that I remember as being one of the same thing. But that's the same argument with Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah,
it's not about necessarily their kids. It's about I watch Pepe Le Pew and I don't have any problems. Yes, you do. Just accept the fact.
Yeah, I turned out fine is not a phrase you should ever say if you turned out fine.
Yeah, you shouldn't need to tell people that you turned out fine.
And by the way, wake up call for everyone. You did not turn out fine. Nobody turned out fine.
No, we didn't. None of us did.
And that's fine. That's okay to not turn out quote unquote fine. Just find out your shit and work on it, man. It's okay.
Yes. Some of us have figured out what wasn't fine and have worked on it and have, done the work to try to do better and learn to be better. Some of us still are in denial of it and still think that everything turned out fine. No, you didn't. Those things that you thought were just the wonderments of being of growing up in your time period, they weren't wonderments. They weren't wonderments at all. The cute little things that that's not really child abuse. Yes, it was actually. It was then. It is now. You were abused as a child. You just don't want to admit it. Why? You don't want to be a victim? Well, sadly, you were. You were a victim too. Accept it, understand that it shaped you, and try to do better because of it. Don't let it shape you in the bad way where you abuse your kids in the same way or abuse other people in the same way you were abused because that's what you've learned. Instead, realize I didn't like being abused that way, so I'm not going to abuse other people that way. Or even learn it doesn't seem right that somebody would be abused that way. I've never felt that myself, but honestly, I don't think I would like it if I did have to feel it. Because here's the thing, especially when we're talking about the Pepe Le Pew thing. You don't have to have been sexually harassed yourself to be able to think, do I want to be sexually harassed?
Right.
And here's the thing to think about. Don't think about it from the sense of the person that you find the most attractive in the world sexually harassing you, because you'll like that. You will. You'll want that to happen. I'm
not gonna say that I entirely fully agree with that statement, but I think I understand the context you're going after.
Okay, here's the context. Think of the fact that when you're a single guy, right?
Right.
Think of a woman that you would think of as the hottest woman that humanly possible, right?
Okay.
She starts trying to force sex upon you.
You're
probably going to like that.
No,
yeah,
not force. Like that. No, man, not force.
If it's the woman that you're attracted to, that all you can think about is having sex with her. If she's trying to get it on, you're going to go.
No, man. Context is a major deal.
I'm saying most people would say yes.
You don't. Okay. I think we're hitting. I mean, I personally don't. I don't consider that to be a good
let's put
thing.
It this way. Let's put it this way. Let me rephrase it then. If this woman that you find attractive is coming on to you and coming on to you and coming on to you, you're probably not going to say no because you're attracted to her. You're probably going to say yes. You're probably going to be willing.
If it's an odd situation, if there's something about the situation that does not feel right or feel good, no, I will not. I will not continue that. I will not continue that situation. It's that simple. That doesn't sound right. Like let's consider the Okay, let's consider the possibility then that okay. Let's consider the possibility that they are drunk, or that they are strangely aggressive to a considerable point that makes you uncomfortable. Whether or not they are attractive, or you found them attractive previous to that particular situation, is now a moot point. The context of the situation has to be that it has to be a voluntary, consensual thing between both of you. Being forced into a sexual situation is not something that, whether or not you are attracted to that person, is a good or bad thing. Ask any woman who's been pursued to that degree
you're right.
by an attractive man.
Clear. You're right. I'm not being clear, and I'm not being clear in what I'm saying. I'm using the wrong terminology.
Oh, okay.
That's my fault.
Okay, no problem.
No, I'm using the wrong terminology, and I'm trying to get it out of my head in the right way, and it's not coming out in the right way.
Now, to be within a voluntary situation, maybe in a role playing type situation, that's entirely different.
No, what I'm trying to say is, I'm using the word attractive when that's not the word I want to. When that's the word I should be using. I'm saying it in the wrong way.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say here is, if somebody is pursuing you, right, and the pursuit is wanted because of whatever reason, you are in love with this person. I can still use the attraction here. You have feelings for this person, maybe not in love, but you have feelings for this person. You have attraction to this person. The pursuit is wanted from the person. Then you're okay with the pursuit because you want to be pursued by them.
Yes.
If the pursuit is to be pursued by them.
Yes.
But that's the thing, is many people will try to put themselves in the mindset of, well, if I'm, and that's maybe where I was trying to get to. Many, especially men, will put themselves in the mindset of, well, if it's an attractive woman that's pursuing me, I will be okay with it no matter what because she's an attractive woman. Men have this mindset. This is, I think, the not all men, but many men have this mindset. This is the mindset that gets them into the idea of, if I'm pursuing them, they should be glad they're being pursued because I would be glad I'm being pursued. See what I'm saying? This is the. I
understand where you're coming from. Yes, I understand. I think that comes from. You know what's really funny though? I think that comes from ideas that stem from models like this character. I think this character gives that idea of sexual pursuit as an acceptable thing, where you think that is what is a good thing. You think that's enjoyable. You think that's a game, when it may very well be not. We're touching on something really good here, man.
And that's the mind thing that I would say that men need to get into, the men that think this way, or even the women that think this way, because there are women that think this way too. That if it's a person that you are attracted to and they're pursuing you like that, then it's perfectly okay. Think of it in the way of, this is somebody that you don't have an attraction to, you don't have feelings for, you don't have that connection to, and they're the one aggressively pursuing you. That's where the sexual harassment comes in. And realize that's if you've never been sexually harassed, the mindset you have to put yourself into is, it's not somebody that you have a liking for, have an attraction to, have a desire to be pursuing you sexually, pursuing you that way, because you're okay with that, because you have the desire for them to pursue you in a sexual fashion. Has to be somebody that you don't want to pursue you in a sexual fashion. Then you can understand the mindset of, this is what sexual harassment is. If you haven't experienced it yourself, put yourself in that mindset. Understand, you don't want somebody to pursue you that you're not interested in, and that's where it comes from. Most people can't get. I think there
has been a convinced romanticizing of the cat and mouse game, quote unquote. If we are to take that connotation into
the cat and skunk game,
yeah, the cat and skunk game, yeah. That's the episode title right there, the Cat and Skunk Game.
Awesome.
But if we were to consider that there is a romanticizing of that ideal, right, then you will find people that think or that may be convinced that that is how things should be, and maybe some people do prefer that. But I think that hits a psychological point in certain aspects of society. This is the idea of convinced acceptable rape culture. That's what you start hitting.
I think that goes back to the idea. That that there has been for centuries a prevalence of thought that basically the woman's duty is to be there to give sex to the man, have children for the man. That's their purpose.
It's been there for eons, right? That's been the idea. But it doesn't matter about any of those situations. Every one of those situations whenever you enter into any type of sexual agreement with anyone, and I'm talking like relationships, and when I say sexual, I mean like we're talking sex here, okay? The sex needs to be consensual between both. It is never forced. It is never coerced. It is never persuaded. By
the way, that's even when you're married, people. If you're going to refer to having sex while you're married as the wife doing her wifely duty, you need to sit down with somebody and have some discussions, because that's not how it plays out. This needs to be a consensual situation every time. All parties need to agree. Being married is not getting married, getting that wedding ring. That's not full coverage consent for the rest of your marriage.
Hell no.
Each individual time has to be consent.
Exactly.
But this is something that I think is we can discuss more at length at a later date.
Yeah.
This
is what this kind of stuff touches on, and I think that that's really, really important. You know,
and I can say I have been. How do I want to phrase? I have dealt with somebody that I felt was sexually harassing to me, in a couple of different ways, and it's a story maybe we can tell at a later date when we have a deeper discussion about this.
Yeah.
But I can say that there were many things involved with that I had already understood and had already been very cognizant of the way that I had relationships with, be it friendships or romantic relationships with any girl that I was with. And this even goes into the relationships I had with any male friends. There's, there's many cards that you keep on the table. There's many things that you discuss to make sure you understand the rules and the ramifications of everything that happens within your relationship. And, this was this specific instance that happened with this specific young lady was it definitely gave me gave me the personal experience, but it was an understanding that I had before of people. Nobody wants to feel like this, and you don't want to be the person that makes somebody feel like this by your actions of unwanted advance towards them. But anyway,
yes.
So Pepe Le Pew has been removed. Cancel culture doesn't like it, but I think Mike and I would both agree on the fact that I think it was about time. This is a character that no longer stands the test of time. It's great for him to exist in the little bubble of time that he did exist, just so that we can look back and see and understand that this is how the world viewed certain things at that time, and be able to recognize, like we do with so many things.
Yeah.
It was wrong to understand it at that even then, but that's how they thought. Then we can understand some of their motivations, some of the things that they did a little bit better. And I'm going to tell you right now, your kids not being able to see Pepe Le Pew or watching Pepe Le Pew stuff, it's not hurting your kids any. It may be helping them, might make it so they're better people, men and women, when they grow up than the men and women you've had to deal with in your lifetime.
Exactly.
So, just saying. Anyway, Mike, where can people be listening to us talking about all this stuff? Because I know we've been running really long. We need to get going.
Well, you can be listening to us at our website, thexennialchronicles.com or zencron.com if you didn't want to type that much. Speaking of Zencron, go find us on our social media. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter at Zencron. Go find us there. We're also on most major podcast platforms. I would say, we're on Spotify, we're on Google, we're on Apple, we're on YouTube as well. Even though it's not a podcast platform, we do have a YouTube page, and you should go there and you should subscribe to our channel, and you should do something else as well. Like this video, if you're listening to this on the video on YouTube, our entire archive is available on YouTube, but there's also one other thing that needs to be done on our YouTube page. James, what is that?
Click the bell.
I almost did it, and I skirted my way right around it.
No, I know, you're like, there's something I was supposed to be doing. Hold on, wait, no, I can't say it. Damn it, don't get me again. It was funny. It's actually really funny. My wife was trying to show me about a new piece of sewing equipment that she was thinking about getting. There was a big sale on it. She was thinking about it, but she's like, I'm not sure, yada yada yada. So she's trying to show me the stuff that it does, because that's my thing, is like, what does it do? Because I don't know sewing equipment very well. I just, what does it do? What can you do with it? How much space is it going to need to take up? How many more things do we need to buy for it? You know, because some of those things, it's just you get the machine and that's all you need, right?
Right.
But some of the things you have to buy, like stuff to go in it to make the stuff happen. And it's like, I've been in retail long enough to know that's where they get you. The cost of the machine is probably a pretty good deal, but then you have to buy all the other crap that you have to use in the machine.
Right. Yep.
You have to buy that brand of the crap, because you buy the other brand of the crap, it doesn't work the right way.
Dude, that is how printers get you, dude. Oh, printer, it's only like $99. That's cool. Yeah, except all the toner costs $50 every time you get a hit.
And if you don't use your printer regularly, the toner dries up and you're screwed.
Yep.
Anyway, we're looking at this, and she shows me a YouTube video about what the machine does, so that I could get a bit of an understanding of it.
Yeah.
And as the person is introducing the video, they're talking about do this, subscribe to my page, like this video, and then I'm just sitting there with her. I'm like, click the bell, and then you have to do the bell for getting notifications. My wife looks at me, she goes, seriously? I'm like, that's my part. I say click the bell. That's what I do. I tell people to click the bell. She goes, I can't believe this shit. So anyway, yes, click the bell on our YouTube thing so that you can get notifications regularly. Tell your friends so that we can finally get up to the 100 subscribers.
Yeah.
We're still sitting at what, 37, right? 37?
I think so. We must be getting a couple of subs more recently then. That's fantastic.
37 in a row. Anyway, had to do that.
That's good. Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say it. I said the 37. I was expecting you to be like, in a row, but you didn't. So I'm a little disappointed in you.
It didn't hit me. I apologize.
While you're there on YouTube, getting your friends to subscribe to us so that we can get our 100. Go check out Mike's two other pages. He has his music page, Ruling Note Music, where he talks about music stuff, history of different bands. Sometimes he gets called out for what other people think are his mistakes, but then they don't give any references as to what his mistakes are. They just say he's making mistakes. Listen, if you're going to bitch and complain about something, come backed up with your information. Cite your sources, okay? This is not just for YouTube pages, but this is for anything. Anytime you want to engage your family in conversation on the internet about stuff, cite your sources. Don't just say I heard this. No, cite the damn thing. Anyway, moving on. Mike's other page is one that he does with his wife, because his wife actually likes to do things with him, whereas mine just makes me watch Grey's Anatomy over and over again. I can say all this because she doesn't listen to the show anymore. She hears me talk enough. But Mike's other page with his wife, Chronicles Games. This is Mike and his wife playing video games, supposedly in chronological order of the video game, not in order of when the games come out.
Yes.
Although they keep switching between various video games, because like originally they were going to do some Zelda stuff, and they played that. Then they played like Red Dead something or other, and now they're playing some game that's got some weird funky name that I don't even know. And it's some Japanese thing. So I don't know what the real logic is, but apparently it's fun to watch Mike do really bad at video games and listen to him have to deal with doing bad and his wife making fun of him. Because what better thing to do than to make fun of Mike?
Right.
That's how I spent many nights back in when I was 20. Yeah, I spent many nights making fun of him for various reasons.
It's easy.
Anyway. Check out those pages, subscribe to those as well, click the bells on those, like the videos, all those wonderful things make us feel good, get more people listening, and hopefully you like what you listen to, and we will be back next week, maybe with a more positive topic than this. I don't know. We'll see what the week brings. Oh, I know what the week is going to bring.
Oh.
I can tell you what it's going to bring. Everybody getting paid. That's what it's going to bring.
That's true.
Stimulus! Anyway, we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you for tuning in, friends. The journey continues next week.